Let's begin with the plant cell. The plant cell has a very rigid and rectangular structure. The cell wall is an extracellular structure that distinguishes plant cells from animal cells. Behind the cell wall is the cell membrane, which also helps to control what enters and exits the cell. Other organelles inside the cell consist of ribosomes, the nucleus, chloroplasts, mitochondria, the Golgi apparatus, peroxisomes, the nucleolus, and the smooth and rough ER. Now we're going to move into the process which takes place inside the plant cell, photosynthesis. The chemical equation which models photosynthesis is 6CO2 plus 6H2O yields C6H12O6 plus 6O2. Diagram number 2 depicts carbon dioxide entering the stoma and O2 exiting the stoma. Stoma are microscopic pores on the surface of the leaf. In diagram number 3, you can see the water moving from the roots to the leaves through the xylem, and the sugar moving from the leaves to the rest of the plant through the phloem. To the right of that, you can see the structure of a chloroplast, including granum, stroma, thylakoids, and the outer and inner membrane of the organelle. Next, you can see the light reactions in the granum and a Calvin cycle in diagram number 6. Lastly, number 7 depicts the pathways of glucose. The three are glucose to starch, glucose to cellulose, and glucose plus fructose creating cellulose. Card number 1 dives deeper into the organic molecule of glucose, specifically the hydrolysis of starch into glucose on the left, which occurs throughout the process of photosynthesis. Organic molecules raise blood glucose levels, and insulin is created from protein synthesis. One of insulin's roles is to regulate how glucose is used in the body. The process of protein synthesis is broken down into 4 diagrams on this card. First is the transcription of an insulin molecule taking place in the nucleus of a cell. Next, the new mRNA strand is processed and goes through translation in the cytoplasm. Finally, the insulin leaves the cell through exocytosis. So how does protein synthesis begin? It all begins when a ligand attaches to a protein receptor. After reception, the signal is passed through relay molecules in a signal transduction pathway, when finally there is activation of a cellular response. As a matter of fact, receptor proteins are located in the cell membrane where cellular transport takes place. Proteins made in protein synthesis also play a major role in transport. The plasma membrane consists of a phospholipid bilayer, which also has cholesterol, carrier proteins, intermembrane proteins, and channel proteins embedded in it. Both passive and active transport take place in the plasma membrane. Now that we've covered the plant cell, let's move into the animal cell. The major differences between a plant cell and an animal cell is that an animal cell does not have a cell wall or a large central vacuole, and they do have lysosomes, which plant cells do not have. Animals cannot undergo photosynthesis, so their way of producing energy is through cellular respiration. The chemical formula for cellular respiration is glucose and carbon dioxide yields carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. Respiration takes place in the mitochondria. The processes of cellular respiration include glycolysis, the citric acid cycle, phosphorylation, chemiosmosis, and fermentation. Instead of creating glucose, which occurs in photosynthesis, in respiration, glucose is broken down as seen in the diagram on the right of this card. In order for a cell to duplicate, the DNA must first replicate. In the semi-conservative model, the parent DNA molecule separates and 2 new daughter DNA molecules are created using base pairing. Sexual reproduction goes through a process called meiosis. Much variation can result from meiosis. Reasons for variation include crossing over, independent assortment, non-disjunction, segregation, and random fertilization. A zygote forms from the gamete daughter cells. That zygote then develops into an embryo, then a fetus, then an offspring, and finally an adult. On the other hand, cells that reproduce asexually go through mitosis. In mitosis, a cell only goes through one duplication rather than the two which occur in meiosis. The steps of mitosis include prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase.